in 30 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 4 minutes.
Scott, Andrew's calling in early and wants to test the connection. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I don't care.
Here you go.
Andrew can test the connection.
Go ahead.
Andrew. Assistant.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 45 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 30 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 15 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 5 seconds.
He's not just a conservative voice at CNN. He's the last man standing athwart the leftist mob, delivering the fiery truth, surrounded, outnumbered, still undefeated. fighting for free speech, Western civilization, and delivering common sense for the American people. Ladies and gentlemen, here's Scott Jennings.
All right, it's Friday, December the 5th. I'm really excited about the show today because the revolution of Common Sense book tour continues to roll through Arizona. I'm still in Phoenix, and today we're broadcasting in the studios of my friend, you may have heard of him, Officer Brandon Tatum. Brandon, if you don't know this guy, you need to look up Officer Tatum on social media. He is a total conservative rock star. You find him on Instagram and X. He's got an amazing YouTube channel, Officer Brandon Tatum. I'm going to do his podcast when we're done with the radio show today, but he graciously opened up his office, and we're sitting here in the Officer Tatum studios. I am going to wrap this up in Phoenix and then head down to Tucson tonight. We got a big book event, going to sign some Revolution of Common Sense books in Tucson tonight as well. So Arizona's been good. We had a great event last night, big crowd. So it's been fun to be in Phoenix. Off to Texas this weekend. I have an event with the Texas Farm Bureau on Saturday night, and then we'll be back in, let's see, New York, Philly, Ohio. The travels continue. The revolution of common sense continues to fly off the shelves. As always, by the way, the Scott Jennings Show is sponsored by Ease Total Health. Health insurance is broken. Ease, E-A-S-E, fixes it. No deductibles, no red tape, and real benefits from day one. Visit easeforeveryone.com. At 33 minutes past the hour today, Ambassador Yakil Leiter, he's the Israeli ambassador to the United States. He will join the show. I'm going to get the latest on the ceasefire, the peace process, and his thoughts on the rise of anti-Semitism in America. But first, let's start with news of the day. Another win for Trump in his fight against these activist federal judges. A U.S. appeals court ruled today President Donald Trump can fire Democratic members of two federal labor boards. President Trump had removed Democratic appointees from the NLRB, that's National Labor Relations, and the Merit Systems Protection Boards. He, of course, was sued over this immediately, like everything else. But the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals says, in fact, the president can be the president after all. Thank you very much. Shockwaves in the entertainment world today. Netflix has announced a merger with Warner Brothers. The staggering $83 billion deal will send the film and TV studios of one of America's most beloved entertainment corporations to the world's largest streaming service. The cable TV assets of Warner Brothers, this is important to me for obvious reasons, are still being spun off. So CNN is not part of the deal, so far as I can tell. This now will need federal regulatory approval, so stay tuned on this, folks. This was breaking, by the way, while we were on the air yesterday. The FBI has arrested a suspect in the January 6, 2021 pipe bombing incident. If you'll remember, there were pipe bombs planted outside of the Republican and Democratic National Committee offices there on January the 6th. Well, the FBI says they finally caught the guy who did it. That's several years ago. Deputy FBI Director and friend of the show, Dan Bongino, gave a press conference about this yesterday, touted the efforts of the Trump administration to finally get their man. Here's Bongino.
Folks, this is what it's like when you work for a president who tells you to go get the bad guys and stop focusing on other extraneous things not related to law enforcement. This is what happens. We had a great team. I know it's said a lot in this business. It was a team effort. It becomes cliche, but cliches are useful for a reason because they matter. And this was a team effort. The director and the attorney general emphasized that it was not a new public tip this was our internal work at the FBI.
Okay, the guy they arrested is named Brian Cole Jr. He's 33 years old. Some claim he's some kind of an anarchist. He has a minimal online presence, so we'll see what develops here. But it sounds like someone, and they're pretty sure with the evidence they have, is in custody over the pipe bombing at the RNC and the DNC. This is the Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network. As we head into this weekend, Christmas is only 20 days away. And already, thanks to all of you, our dear listeners, over 4,500 little children are going to have a brighter Christmas through our Angel Tree program. You know who these little ones are. They have a mom or a dad in prison. It's heartbreaking. It's not their fault. And you, our listeners, have stepped up in a big way to help. If you haven't joined yet, today's the day to do it. Just go to scottjenningsshow.com. Click on the Angel Tree banner. It's up at the very top of the page. It only takes $30 to bless a single child. When you give $30, here's what this little kid gets. They get a present for Christmas, they get a gospel message, and they get a personalized note from the parent that's incarcerated. Can you imagine how life must feel for these little ones? Mom or dad is in prison, and a time of joy actually is a time of misery until you step in. That is. Renee Chavez Mays was once a prisoner herself. She knows firsthand the impact that your $30 gift can have on a prisoner's child. Here's Renee.
It is a tangible touch from their loved one, and it can be that spark of hope or that breath in their lungs that help them get through to the next season, right? And just by unwrapping a gift that has mom or dad's name on it, God is good, and he can multiply that gift in ways that we will never be able to see this side of heaven.
So here's how you can help. As I mentioned, go to scottjenningsshow.com. At the top of the page, we have an Angel Tree banner. It's very simple. You click it, and it takes you to the donation portal. I just did it literally right before we went on the air. I went on my own page. I clicked the donation portal, and I made my gift to the Angel Tree program. So I did it today, and it would be an honor for you to join me on this very day. If you'd rather not give online, you can call up our special hotline at 888-206-2793. That's 888-206-2793. So I made my gift. The Angel Tree program is a blessing for thousands of children, and we'd be honored if you would join us today. More news today. The president was at the Kennedy Center earlier today with Gianni Infantino, the president of FIFA. That's the soccer guys, and they had the 2026 FIFA World Cup draw. In conversations with reporters, the president was asked about possibly meeting with the president of Mexico and the prime minister of Canada in the near future. The topic would be immigration. Take a listen to this exchange.
Fantastic job.
Are you going to be meeting with the president of Mexico today and the prime minister of Canada as well? Will you be discussing immigration and trade with them?
Okay, well, that could be interesting if they meet. Maybe he can talk some sense into Claudia Sheinbaum and Mark Carney. Now, this all comes, by the way, as the president's National Security Council has released a new document, a new national security strategy document, and it reaffirms the number one interest of the United States is being able to secure the Western Hemisphere. And the best way to do that could be through negotiating with our partners and our neighbors in Canada and Mexico. You know, this document is interesting because it also talks about what's going on in Europe. And the document says, and I'm going to quote from it, "The real and more stark prospect of civilization erasure is what's facing the people of Europe right now because of immigration and the erosion of democratic principles. This has caused a bit of a kerfluffle, as you can imagine, over in Europe. But obviously right now, the national security apparatus of the United States government takes a dim view of what's going on with Europe because of their mass migration crisis and because of some illiberal and anti-democratic things going on over in those countries." It's Scott Jennings here on the Salem Radio Network to tell you a story. Last weekend, I went home for Thanksgiving back to Kentucky, and I was able to go to, I haven't been one all year. I went to the University of Louisville, University of Kentucky football game there in Louisville. I'm a Louisville grad. That's my alma mater. I'm a Cardinal. And so I wanted to go to the football game, and man, was it cold. Oh, my goodness gracious. It was cold, and I was wavering on whether to go. My dad and my oldest son went with me. We were wavering, like, should we go to this? It's so cold out here. And then I remembered, oh, I can go. It could be even colder than it is right now because I have heat holders. I put my heat holders socks on. I put my heat holders gloves on. I put my heat holders hat on. And I was as warm and toasty as I could be as the Louisville Cardinals rolled over the Kentucky Wildcats. The Louisville fans were happy, especially me, because I wasn't freezing to death thanks to heat holders. This company has 40,000 five-star reviews, and I'm going to tell you why. Because they work. The stuff is warm. So if you have to go outside in the winter when it's cold, or if you live somewhere where it's cold, I don't know how you make it without heat holders. Here's what you do. Go to heatholders.com. Use code SCOTT. Get 15% off your order on any purchase over $25. Heatholders.com. Code SCOTT. Heat Holders keeps you warm, comfortable, and cozy from head to toe. More when we come back. It's Common Sense for the American people here on the Salem Radio Network.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 15 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 5 seconds.
Ready for some common sense and a little Kentucky windage? Here's Scott Jennings.
Okay, breaking news in the Scott Jennings show. A federal judge has said that he will release the Jeffrey Epstein grand jury documents. So they're going to unseal documents from that trial that were in the grand jury. This is just coming out. I don't know much more than that. So sounds like a little more Epstein material is going to make it into the public domain. In other news today, the climate change cult is having a rough go of it. President of the United States, Donald Trump, did something momentous this week. He reset the Biden administration's fuel economy standards that had made it very expensive to near impossible to manufacture gasoline-powered vehicles in the United States. How elated are the car makers? Well, take a listen to Ford CEO Jim Farley after the announcement.
It's a really important improvement for U.S. customers. What you should know is that this is a victory for affordability and common sense. As the president said, we will be able to offer more affordability on our popular models, and we'll be able to launch new vehicles built in America that are more affordable because of this rule change. Frankly, CAFE was totally out of touch with the market reality. We were forced to sell EVs and other vehicles. We're not going back to gas guzzlers. We have a lot of EVs and a lot of hybrids at Ford, but now customers get a chance to choose what they want, not buy what we force on them.
So it sounds like that thanks to Donald Trump killing these insane Biden regulations, we could finally build cheaper cars in America again. Andrew Follett is here now. He has a piece in the National Review today. He argues that if well-funded environmentalists, who are mad about this, by the way, are losing the information war, maybe it's time for them to look inward. Andrew, welcome back to the Scott Jennings Show. The libs are mad. Tell us what you got today, brother.
They're always mad, Scott. But yeah, it's a fundamental tenet of their dogma that the problem can never be the product they're selling. The problem can only be the message. And that's just not how you sell something.
No, it's not. Yeah, I was reading your piece. And so, it feels like, and I think this is broad across the board. You see it in some of the polling. It just feels like there's a pendulum swing away from the tyranny of this climate cult. You see the Trump administration, of course, I think is leading on a number of fronts, and Lee Zeldin at the EPA has rolled back regulations, and now we have this CAFE thing. But what you're saying and arguing in your piece is that the climate folks are like, well, wait a minute. It's not a problem with our policies. It's not a problem that people have decided we're crazy. It's just a problem that we've got the wrong message, or that the other side of the argument is allowed to talk at all. Is that about it?
Correct. At a recent international climate science thing down in Brazil, the only thing they could all agree on was criticizing so-called climate skeptics and disinformation. And they want that banned.
Yeah. So whenever they lose an argument, or whenever somebody makes a policy decision, that's sort of the last refuge of the lib, is to say, well, everything that was said to you is disinformation. But the truth is, it's not. It's not. And they never really grapple with the consequences of their own actions. The reason I played the Jim Farley clip there was because I wanted the listeners to hear from somebody who has to directly deal with this. So Biden puts in some regulations, and then the immediate effect on the marketplace was to make it more expensive for consumers. And the climate people, they don't ever really seem to want to grapple with the consequences of their policy prescriptions. And so in this case, it couldn't possibly be that what we did was stupid. It's just that there was disinformation and people didn't get, they don't know how good this was for them. I mean, it is kind of remarkable to watch them scramble. But they're having trouble coming to grips. There's a new sheriff in town. His name's Donald Trump.
I agree. And the fact of the matter is most of the disinformation is coming from their side, not ours. Gasoline is actually about 50 times more energy dense by weight than the electric car batteries. Weight is a big factor in cars. So, they've spent hundreds of millions of dollars on this, billions in fact, and their stuff doesn't work. No one wants it.
It doesn't work. People don't. Look, if you do want it, that's fine. But we don't need the government to necessarily force people to want something if they don't want it. I mean, this is, once again, the beauty of marketplace here. We don't need to force people to do things. If you want to get an EV, go ahead. If you want to get a hybrid, go ahead. But there has to be a marketplace for people who just want to buy a cheap car that works. And I mean, that's essentially what the CEO of Ford is telling us. The piece is called Green Energy's Problems Go Beyond Messaging. It is in the National Review. The author is Andrew Follett, friend of the show. Andrew, thanks for coming by today, and hopefully folks will check that out. We're going to take a break, but when we come back, we have a big interview today. The ambassador of Israel to the United States is with us today. I've got some important questions to ask him, and he's coming up right after this. It's Common Sense for the American People. I'm so glad you're here. This is Scott Jennings on the Salem Radio Network.
Common sense for the American people. This is the Scott Jennings Show.
Down home, where they know you about
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return in 1 minute. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 45 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 30 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 15 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 5 seconds.
Now, for America's favorite pundit, it's Scott Jennings.
Friday, December the 5th, here on the Salem Radio Network. A couple of breaking news items just into the Scott Jennings Show. First of all, the Supreme Court has agreed to rule on the president's bid to end birthright citizenship. This is the immigration case, the argument over the 14th Amendment, where if an illegal alien comes into the United States and has a child, is that child a U.S. citizen by virtue of having been born here? That's the way it has been. President Trump argues it should not be that way. The court says they'll rule on it, so I would expect a decision probably next summer. And in redistricting news, the Indiana House of Representatives has just passed the redrawn U.S. House map for Indiana, the Hoosier state, and they eliminated all Democrat congressional districts in the state. The state Senate will convene Monday to have a vote, so we'll pay attention to that story. Coming up here on the Scott Jennings Show in just one moment, we have the ambassador of Israel to the United States joining us. We have an important conversation today. First, I need to give you a quick word from our partner and our title sponsor, Ease Total Health. You know, health insurance is in the news lately. The news is not good. The costs are going up. Your premiums are going up. And the frustration that you have with it all is going up. You try to use your coverage, and it just, you know, it feels like sometimes you don't have insurance at all. Runaway costs are the biggest issue facing what's going on in Congress right now. They got this looming deadline at the end of the year. But I have good news for you about healthcare, and I want to talk about our friends at Ease Total Health, EASE. That's how you spell it. It is not traditional insurance. It is much better than that. You get benefits that you can use on day one. There are no deductibles and no restrictions on what doctors or hospitals you can choose. They have a range of options. If it's just you, your family, you need to go to their website and find out everything they can do for you. It's called Ease Total Health, and the website is Ease, EASE, foreveryone.com/Scott, or call them up, 888-EASE. 123. If I were you, I wouldn't wait for the government or big insurance to come to the rescue, because they won't. Go to easeforeveryone.com/Scott or call 888-EASE-123. It is the Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network. Joining us now is Israeli Ambassador to the United States, Yechiel Leiter, originally from Scranton, Pennsylvania. Ambassador Leiter moved to Israel in the late 1970s. He was Prime Minister Netanyahu's chief of staff when they were in the Ministry of Finance. He was also, he's been a big part of the Israeli public affairs life for many, many years. Ambassador Leiter, I just want to thank you for joining us today. You came by the show once before as we were celebrating and trying to talk about when the hostages were coming home, and that was a special time. We're a few months out from that now, and I want to start our conversation today with, where do we stand today? The living hostages came home. I do know there is still one person, one hostage that has not yet come home. And so this is day 790. Ran Javili, a police officer who rushed in to defend the kibbutz Alumim. He's still called the Shield of Alumim by the people there. His remains are still in Gaza. Can you tell us what the status of that situation is, and will we get the final hostage back?
Well, Scott, thank you for having me. It's good to be on with America's favorite pundit this Friday afternoon.
Thank you, sir.
Actually, I've got a bigger compliment for you. I was in attendance when you gave a speech at the RJC, and I just want to tell you it was probably one of the best speeches given at that conference. So thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate your saying that. I meant every word of it, and that was an important gathering of people out in Las Vegas. We just, and we'll talk about this in a minute. We cannot stand for this anti-Semitism. We cannot stand for this hate that is creeping into American politics. We saw it on the left, and now we're seeing it creep in on the right. And I had a strong message that day. Many people did. We just can't stand for it, Ambassador. And I thank you for your compliment, but we have to take a stand against this. It's not who we are.
Well, absolutely. You had a great message, and I think it resonated with the thousands of people who were there. Look, we're a couple of weeks down the line after the ceasefire that the president brokered through the good services of his team, Mr. Kushner, Mr. Witkoff, Secretary of State Rubio. It's a tremendous development. We have almost all of our hostages home. Ron Gvili is still there. He is, as you said, a great hero. And we're going to insist that his remains come home and we not move forward until we actually have all of our hostages out. He's the last one, and we're waiting for Hamas to turn him over. And then we'll have to move to the second phase, which means that Hamas is going to have to be disarmed and Gaza demilitarized before we can actually start withdrawing our forces from Gaza and have other forces from around the world take over. We have to be sure that we never go back to October 6th. Israel's defense doctrine has changed. We're not going to allow jihadis on our border, not in Lebanon, not in Syria, not the Houthis, and not Hamas. So we're moving forward. We're hopeful, but we're anxious and concerned, and we're going to be insistent that Gaza is fully demilitarized. This is the only option we have for jihadis in such close proximity to our civilians.
So Hamas still holds power in Gaza. We're still dealing with Hamas, and Israel still has military assets there. Are you still having to conduct some military operations? Is Hamas fully complying with the ceasefire? My impression is that they do get out of line from time to time, and it forces Israel back into action.
It's important to understand, and I think that many people in the West here in the United States don't appreciate the fact that there are bad actors. There's actually evil. They're evil people, and their conviction is to destroy Israel and kill as many Jews as possible. That's what they did on October 7th, and that's what they'll do again if they're given the opportunity. And, Scott, people who murder also tend to lie and cheat. So they have agreed to the ceasefire, but they're certainly not keeping it. Their terrorists are emanating from the tunnels that they've built. There's an excess of 300 miles of terror tunnels that they created with international funding under an area which is just 8 miles wide and 24 miles long. It's actually a bigger tunnel network than the underground of London. And these tunnels have to be destroyed. The tunnels have to be destroyed. Otherwise, we're going into a mode where these terrorists are going to hide their weapons, massive amount of weapons they smuggled over the years. They're going to hide them in the tunnels. We're talking about shoulder-launched missiles that create tremendous damage. And, of course, submachine guns, explosives. And this can't be allowed to go on. The tunnels have to be destroyed. Hamas has to be disarmed. And, yes, they're constantly violating the ceasefire by popping out of these tunnels and shooting at our soldiers and our civilians. And we have to return. We have to return fire, and we're doing our best we can to keep the ceasefire in check. But we're not going to allow Hamas to reconstitute and rear its ugly head again.
Let me shift gears to Lebanon. I know the Israeli government's been in communication with Lebanon there about Hezbollah. Israel even had to launch some strikes against a few positions in southern Lebanon. What can you tell us about the situation with cleaning out Hezbollah there?
Well, we're going to continue leveling those strikes until Hezbollah is not only degraded, but is actually eliminated from being a potential hostile force in Lebanon. We cannot have terrorists, again, whether they're the Shia brand in Lebanon or the Sunni brand in Hamas in Gaza. shooting missiles into our northern cities. So we're going to have to operate until such time where the Lebanese army is able or willing to disarm Hezbollah. This is a Iranian proxy. It's important to understand, Scott, this is all coming from Iran, from a doctrine which fundamentally believes in destroying the West. And the first step in destroying the West and destroying Judeo-Christian civilization is first to destroy Israel, because Israel is this transplant of Western civilization in the Middle East. So Iran believes in eradicating Israel. And the way to do that is to create proxies all around the country called the Ring of Fire, which the Hamas and the Houthis and Hezbollah are all part of, to attack Israel constantly with missiles and by storming through tunnels and killing civilians in order for Iran to be able to follow through with their ballistic missiles and ultimately overcome Israel. You know, you had an item about Indiana just before we got on air, and it's important for your listeners to understand Israel can fit into the state of Indiana 4 times.
Wow.
We're the size of New Jersey. We can fit into Indiana 4 times. And we're a tiny, small country. And if we're surrounded by these Iranian proxies intent on destroying us, we're going to have to respond in kind. And we've degraded all of these proxies. We've degraded Iran through Operation Rising Lion and through Operation Midnight Hammer. The United States stood by our side and really operated not only by our side, but in American interests, because President Trump and the administration understands that Iran is committed not only to destroying Israel. Israel is only the first step. Iran is committed to destroying the West and destroying the United States. That's been their agenda throughout. Anybody who reads their material, and it's important to understand what people believe when they advocate this kind of stuff. And their stuff is available for reading, for study, and that's their ideology. The first stop is Israel, and that's why we have to be strong and make sure that not the Houthis, not the Hezbollah in Lebanon or Hamas in Gaza are able to persevere and to carry out their derelict and reprehensible agenda.
We've got about a minute before we take a quick break, Ambassador. I do want to ask you about where we stand with the possible expansion of the Abraham Accords. We saw the Saudi Crown Prince in with President Trump the other day. They obviously talked about it. What's your view? What's the view of the Israeli government? I mean, it seems to me the best way to continue to isolate Iran is to get unification, diplomatic, economic, and security unification among the other players in the region. Do you believe we will see an expansion of the Abraham Accords in the near future?
I do believe it, Scott. I think we're moving in that direction to Abraham Accords 2.0. I think we're going to see the potential exists for Saudi Arabia to come in, for Lebanon, for Syria to come in. I think other countries outside the region, Indonesia, perhaps Malaysia, maybe even Pakistan at some point. There's no reason they shouldn't. If we get over this idea of destroying Israel, then everything's going to fall in line. And it's directly connected to what I said before about degrading Iran and its proxies. To the degree that they're degraded, I mean, remember, Iran was preparing missiles that could, intercontinental ballistic missiles that would hit, intercontinental means only one thing, it crosses the ocean.
Right.
It's only intended for the United States, right? So they're preparing them. If they're degraded, then the moderate Arab countries are going to be willing to come in. But if the moderate countries sense that the potential for Iranian extremism remains strong, they're going to be hesitant to come in. So it's a parallel track. We can move into the positive arena of Abraham Accords 2.0 and peace and harmony in the region, mutual security, regional security, but that has to happen alongside of the full degrading and defeat of the Iranian proxies.
Yeah, we have to defeat Iran. We need full demilitarization of Hamas in Gaza. Hezbollah has to go away. I mean, there's a number of things that have to fall in place here, but it just does feel like we have some optimism finally. That voice you're hearing on the Scott Jennings Show today, Ambassador Yakil Leiter from the nation of Israel. Ambassador Leiter is Israel's ambassador to the United States, and he was born originally in Scranton, Pennsylvania. So we're really grateful to have him on, and we're going to hold him over and finish our conversation because I do, Ambassador, want to discuss this issue of anti-Semitism in America. A quick word from our friends at Relief Factor. You know, we get letters. Sharon sent us one and said, "You don't understand. The pain is gone. I'm going to take this the rest of my life. I am a walking testimonial." So many people have sent us letters like this. And if you're like Sharon and pain is holding you back, get on the Relief Factor, relieffactor.com, or call 1-800-4-RELIEF. You will not regret it. Folks in the Jennings household like it, I can tell you that. More with Ambassador Leiter from Israel. When we come back, it's Common Sense for the American people. Scott Jennings on Salem Radio Network.
You like what you had. So hold on loosely.
Seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 15 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 5 seconds.
When he's not in the Oval Office or owning the libs on CNN, he's here with us. It's the Scott Jennings Show.
Friday, December the 5th, our special conversation with Ambassador Leiter from Israel is continuing now. Ambassador, something terrible happened on May 21st of this year. A shooting occurred near the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. A gunman opened fire outside the museum during a young diplomat's reception hosted by the American Jewish Committee. 2 Embassy of Israel staff members were killed. They were leaving the event and they were killed. Yaron Lashinsky, a German-Israeli, and Sarah Milgram, who was an American Jew. They had attended this event. It was an event to foster unity among Jewish young professionals, and they were tragically murdered. I want to play a clip for you about, I was following this the other day. Interviewer Pierce Morgan was interviewing this anti-Semite, unfortunately, named Guy Christensen. He's like a young influencer. I want to play this exchange about how he described the murderer in this case. Let's hear that and get your reaction.
Clear. When I said to you, did he murder these people? You said yes. And when I said, did he do it for political reasons? You said yes. That is the definition of terrorism. And yet your response at the time was he's not a terrorist. He's a resistance fighter. And I put it to you, you have now admitted he's a terrorist.
No, he's a resistance fighter.
So the suspect here, Ambassador, is Elias Rodriguez. He's 30 years old. He's from Chicago. And according to witnesses, he was saying, free, free Palestine, while in custody. Another person said, I did it for Gaza. When you hear exchanges like this, as Israel's ambassador to the United States, what goes through your mind? How do you react to that?
Well, you know, one of the things about anti-Semitism is its irrationality. It makes absolutely no sense. The charges of, genocide and starvation, ethnic cleansing, are all lies. They're big blood libels, like in the Middle Ages, where they accused Jews of using blood in their wafers or poisoning wells. And this accusation of genocide, what's going on in Gaza, no army in the world has taken the precautions that we've taken to avoid civilian casualties. And no one has ever had to contend with 300 miles of tunnels underground with terrorists fighting, 40,000 terrorists fighting among civilians. We did everything we possibly can. We flooded Gaza with food, and it didn't help. And people who have a narrative that is one of hate towards Israel are going to believe the craziest things, and they're going to do the craziest things. So this Elias gets on a plane with a gun in Chicago, flies to Washington, and chooses to assassinate, to murder two beautiful young kids who are diplomats here at the embassy. Sarah and Sarah was from Kansas City. I mean, she was like Judy Garland. I mean, she was, from Kansas. She was full of life, full of innocence, and they were about to be engaged. And just, by the way, she was hit once, and then she was crawling to get away from this murderer, who this profound idiot on air calls a resistance fighter. What was he exactly resisting when Sarah was crawling away on the ground to get under a car to avoid his gunfire, and then he shot her in the head, the back of the head.
Awful.
So, well, you know what it is? It's the inability to define evil as evil. We live, Scott, in the postmodern era where moral relativity has taken over, and there's just too many people who find it impossible and unable to declare something good, objective good, and something as objective evil. And this nonsense of accusing Israel of these horrific crimes and using it as an excuse to shoot Jews in the back of the head is evil, is pure evil. And the worst thing is that we're the canary in the coal mine. The Jews have always been anti-Semitism doesn't stop with hatred of Jews. No. It always ends up with the hatred of others and with the military and very often the murder, literally the murder of others as well, not just of Jews. So this is a rise of hate that needs to be called out, and thank you and thank your colleagues for doing so, because if hate is not opposed, it's going to continue to fester and to spread beyond the Jewish community.
Ambassador, we will stand against it. You're one of the best friends that we have from Israel in the United States, and Israel remains our strong ally. I can't thank you enough for coming on the show today. We got to go. We'll be back Monday. The book tour continues. I'm Scott Jennings. We're on the Salem Radio Network.
You were born